Hey guys, tonight we're sinking deep into the misty heart of ancient Rome, not to the battlefield or the forum, but to a quieter, stranger place. A place where warm steam curls up your nose, damp marble soothes your bare feet, and you can hear the water gently gurgling beneath your toes. Tonight, you're walking into a Roman therme, a public bathhouse so massive and complex that it makes modern spas look like puddles. You're already sweating, by the way. The caldarium is thick with heat. The walls sweat with you. Your towel sticks unhelpfully to your back. And beneath it all, unseen, but not unsmelled, runs a silent, hidden network of lead pipes, delivering water that's heated, cooled, redirected, and, in some unfortunate cases, lightly seasoned with toxic metal. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is. Always curious who else is falling asleep to ancient plumbing. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step inside the bathhouse, and it hits you. This is no ordinary soak. Imagine a 3-story water temple wrapped in columns and mosaics, with rooms that shift from freezing to volcanic. The floors are hot. Literally, a hypocaust or underfloor heating system channels fire through a crawl space below your feet. Slaves keep the flames going night and day. It's a luxury that screams, you probably won't survive this as a modern HVAC tech. Everything here is designed around water, controlling it, heating it, moving it. And none of that works without pipes. You follow a tiny trickle snaking along a groove in the marble. It disappears into a spout shaped like a lion's mouth, growling as water flows through its metal throat. You lean closer. The pipe glints. That's not copper, not bronze. That's lead. Plumbum. Lead was the Roman favorite. Easy to work with. Malleable. Waterproof. Abundant. You could hammer it, mold it, even roll it into sheets, and stamp it like a letter. Sure, it was heavy. And yes, occasionally poisonous. But it was efficient. You smirk. Efficiency has always come with side effects. As you drift into the frigidarium, the cool bath, your skin tingles with the sudden chill. It's almost refreshing enough to make you forget that the entire supply, cold, hot, warm, flows through miles of lead piping that snake invisibly through the walls, ceilings, and floors. The pipes come from aqueducts, towering stone marvels you'll get to later, but they don't just drop water into tubs like a waterfall. Once water gets close to the city, gravity does its work. Yes, but the final distribution, the bathhouses, villas, fountains, latrines, all of it is lead-lined, meticulously routed, often hidden behind frescoed walls. You can hear it now. Behind that cracked tile, a low, burbling whisper. Water slipping through channels like whispers in the walls. Romans believed water was a gift from the gods, especially when it showed up on time and hot. And lead was how you made sure it did. Now you ease into the tepidarium, the warm bath. Muscles soften. Eyelids start to lower. Around you, men gossip, debate philosophy, and scratch at their backs with curved bronze strigils. You glance at the floor. It's stone, sure, but the real show's below. Beneath every elegant mosaic is an infrastructure of fire and pipe. In fact, some of the wealthiest bathhouses had what we'd call thermostats, adjustable valves that controlled flow and heat. All operated manually, of course, and only as accurate as the man twisting the bronze knob. But you know what's not so accurate? The water quality. See, while lead pipes did a stellar job delivering water, they also had a tendency to flavor it subtly. Some Romans noted the heaviness or odd sweetness of water drawn from certain pipes. But hey, most of them had never tasted filtered spring water from a hydro flask, so who's judging? And here's your quirky tidbit. To clean the bathhouse pipes, workers would occasionally flush them with vinegar. Sounds smart, right? Except vinegar is acidic, and acid eats lead. Which means, congratulations, you just made yourself a nice, healthy lead acetate cocktail. Cheers. Historians still argue whether the average Roman actually consumed enough lead to cause widespread poisoning. Some claim that the calcium in Roman water sources formed a crust inside the pipes, reducing lead leaching. Others point to skeletal remains with disturbingly high levels of lead. The answer? It's murky. like the bottom of a public bath at rush hour. You dry off and wrap a linen cloth around your waist, because nudity was technically optional, and wander into a smaller, more intimate room. A private bath for the upper class. Fewer crowds. More gold. Same lead pipes, though. Nobody escapes the plumbing. You touch the wall. Warm. The pipes are back there, behind the decorative panels. Sometimes the engineers used lead sheets to line entire cisterns. Think about that. Not just pipes, but reservoirs made entirely of soft, heavy metal. It's a wonder they didn't all keel over mid-splash. Still, there's something soothing about it all. The quiet trickle. The ancient hum of a city that trusted its plumbing more than its politicians. Water came. Water went. And you? You soak, sigh, and think. Maybe that's all anyone really needs. Outside the bathhouse, as twilight settles over Rome, street fountains gurgle with that same unmistakable metallic whisper. Lead, guiding every drop. And now, as you step into the cool Roman night, dripping slightly and drowsy, you begin to wonder, how did all that water get here? Well, we'll follow it back upstream. You step out of the bathhouse and into the streets of Rome just as dusk falls. The city buzzes with life. Merchants shouting, sandals slapping stone, a donkey cart creaking as it rounds a tight alley. But your ears are drawn elsewhere, to the steady trickle of water in the gutters and fountains, never silent, always moving. You tilt your head upward. There it is, a silhouette against the fading orange sky. The Aqua Claudia, one of Rome's greatest aqueducts, standing tall like a stone centipede striding across the hills. Massive arches span the land, each one carrying the same simple promise: fresh water from far-off springs, right into the heart of the empire. And here's the twist most people forget. Those towering aqueducts? They're only the beginning. Once the water reached the city, the real fun started underground. That's where lead took over. You begin to follow the invisible path the water takes, starting at the Castellum Aquae, the water distribution hub. Think of it as a sorting hat for fluids. Built near the ends of aqueducts, these reservoirs divided the incoming stream into separate channels. Public fountains got some. Bathhouses got more. Private villas? Only if you had clout and an official pipe license. Each of these branches was outfitted with, you guessed it, lead pipes. Fistulae, they called them. The pipes came in standard sizes, measured not by diameter, but by the weight of lead used per Roman foot. That's right. The size was literally named for how much your pipe weighed. You try not to laugh. Imagine ordering a 30-pound, 8-foot pipe at your local hardware store. You pass a fountain bubbling in a quiet square. Children splash their hands. A woman fills a clay jug. And under it all, the same silent veins pulse with water guided by gravity and lead. The pressure varies, depending on your location, your elevation, and your status. Water wasn't just about need, it was about privilege. Rome's aqueduct system eventually reached 11 major lines, carrying over 200 million gallons per day. Some estimates say the average Roman had access to more water than many modern cities. It's mind-boggling. Of course, a lot of that was used inefficiently, or quite literally went down the drain. You crouched beside a gutter where wastewater flows into the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's central sewer. A marvel of civil engineering, yes, but one that relied heavily on the availability of flowing water to flush things away. Without aqueducts and their lead-funneled arms, the sewers would have been a stinking, unmoving lake of despair. Still, the lead pipes weren't just for baths and sewers. You follow the piping deeper into the city's belly, into walls, under pavements, sometimes even up hillsides thanks to cleverly designed siphon systems. Water coursed through temples, gymnasiums, even apartment buildings. If the structure was wealthy enough, it had indoor plumbing. Think about that. Some Roman penthouses had running water in the 1st century. Meanwhile, some modern landlords can't fix a leaky faucet. As you trail one pipe, visible for just a moment where erosion has exposed a cross-section, you notice how soft and pliable the lead is. Romans loved this about lead. You could bend it without snapping, making it ideal for irregular urban layouts. But softness has a cost. Lead pipes weren't indestructible. They dented, collapsed under weight, corroded slowly. And when that happened, well, hope you knew a plumberius. Ah yes, the plumbers of Rome. We'll get to them soon. But spoiler, they were not particularly beloved, especially when they blocked water illegally to get bribes from desperate homeowners. But for now, let's stick with the infrastructure. You climb a hill and reach a small villa. Tucked inside a courtyard is a private fountain. Just a trickle. Decorative. Symbolic. But the pipe feeding it is pure lead, stamped with the owner's name. Yes, that's right. Romans actually branded their pipes. A bit of vanity, a bit of property rights enforcement. Kind of like slapping a custom nameplate on your garden hose. Fringe detail incoming. There are records of people stealing lead pipes not for water, but to melt them down and recast into cursed tablets. Thin strips used in magical rituals to hex enemies. Nothing says vengeance like recycled plumbing. And here's a fun debate for the evening. Did the Romans realize lead was toxic? Historians still argue whether they noticed the symptoms, ignored them, or just didn't connect the dots. Some say they blamed everything on imbalance of humors or bad air. Others suggest elite doctors knew but didn't care, especially if the elite wanted sweet wine, and we'll get to that bubbling pot soon. You turn a corner, and there it is, a shop with a public spout outside, water cascading into a stone trough. It's for travelers, for animals, for the poor. The trickle here is thinner, slower, not because there's less water, but because the pipe is narrower. Water rights were carefully regulated. Bigger pipes equals more flow, and bigger pipes equals more money. Roman officials were supposed to prevent unauthorized widening of pipes. But corruption? Oh, corruption flowed as easily as water. Inspectors could be bribed. Pipes could be replaced overnight. A few extra gallons a day might mean a new fish pond, or a cleaner kitchen, or just the pleasure of getting one up on your neighbor. Speaking of which, you pass a house with a sign scratched into the wall. Stop stealing my water, Gaius. Passive-aggressive graffiti existed back then too. You pause at the edge of the city and glance back. The aqueduct towers fade into the twilight. The pipes beneath your feet carry the empire's lifeblood. They bend, leak, groan, but they endure. Even now, archaeologists find intact lead pipelines under modern roads, still heavy with ancient ambition. And as you head deeper into Rome's residential districts, the question grows louder. Who maintained all this? Who fixed the pipes, sorted the water, kept everything flowing? You're about to meet the unsung heroes, and sometimes villains, of the Roman plumbing world. You're heading down a back alley now, past a line of tall insulae, those Roman apartment blocks that look sturdy enough on the outside, but creak like shipped timbers inside. The evening air smells faintly of fish, olives, and wet stone. Somewhere above you, a neighbor is dumping wash water into the street, and you have just enough time to step aside before your tunic becomes an impromptu sponge. And then you see him, the plumberius. He's crouched beside a stone wall, muttering Latin curses under his breath, holding a folded sheet of lead and a worn hammer. His toolkit is humble: chisels, clamps, sealant made from pitch and wool. But what he does with it? Sorcery. Well, plumbing sorcery, which is kind of the same thing. He doesn't notice you at first. He's too busy tapping the pipe joint, listening to the faint sound of flow. A gentle hiss. A distant glug. Then, silence. Not good. He stands, adjusts his tunic, wipes his forehead with the hem of a linen sleeve. Blocked, he grumbles to no one. And you realize, this guy is the unsung backbone of Rome. The reason bathhouses bubble, fountains dance, latrines flush, sort of, and villas get their precious splash of water. He works with plumbum, lead, which makes him a plumberius. And in time, his profession will give birth to the modern word plumber. But don't let the humble toolkit fool you. These guys had serious authority. They were often hired directly by the curator aquarum, the water commissioner of Rome. Some had government seals and licenses. Others were freelancers, legally shady, occasionally brilliant, always necessary. You kneel beside him as he lays out the offending section of pipe. It's soft and slightly misshapen. Lead bends under even modest pressure, and Roman pipes were often crushed under careless building work, lazy paving, or just time itself. And rodents. Rats love chewing lead. That's something to think about while brushing your teeth tonight. He peels open the edge with practiced fingers, revealing the inner coating. And it's not pristine. In fact, it's crusted white. That's the lime scale, he says, more to himself than to you. The gods' gift to the thirsty. You blink. That crust? It might have actually saved people. Some historians believe that hard water in many parts of Rome deposited a protective mineral layer inside lead pipes, limiting lead leaching. Without it, well, you'd be sipping straight from a neurotoxic straw. He pours a little water inside the pipe section. It trickles out the seam. With a sigh, he rolls out a new lead sheet, already scored. He'll fold and seal it with a lead cap joint and possibly a prayer. He doesn't have Teflon tape. He has oil and wool, and 50 years of accumulated resentment. While he works, you glance at the lead itself. Romans sourced their lead mainly from mines in Spain and Britain. It came in enormous ingots, called pigs, each stamped with the emperor's name, because nothing says imperial propaganda like heavy metal bricks. Once in Rome, the lead was melted and molded into pipes of various gauges. There was even a naming system. A fistula quinaria, for instance, was a pipe that used 5 librae, Roman pounds, of lead per foot. The more librae, the fatter your pipe, the more water you got. And the more water you got, the more bribes you probably paid. You hear a soft clang. The plumberius has finished the patch. It's not pretty, but it'll hold. He leans back, wipes his hands, and gives you a look like he's been doing this since Romulus installed his first shower. Not bad for a slave-born pipe man, he shrugs. Wait, what? Yes, some plumberii were freedmen or slaves trained in their trade. Others were full citizens. Some were engineers with a touch of artistry, designing custom branches and underground junctions that fed entire neighborhoods. But no matter their status, they shared one thing: lead dust in their lungs, sunburn on their arms, and a deep, grudging respect for the aqueduct gods. Quirky fact, some lead pipes even had inscriptions claiming ownership, like, "This pipe belongs to Lucius Julius Maximus. Do not tamper." And guess what? People tampered. A lot. Pipe sabotage was a real issue, especially in dense neighborhoods where cutting off your rival's supply meant drying out his kitchen and his toilet. Which brings us to the gray zone of Roman plumbing, the world of illegal pipe taps. Historians still argue whether the plumberii were heroes or hustlers. Some followed codes. Others quietly rerouted water for a few denarii. If a senator wanted a secret garden pond, no problem. You just accidentally install a lead branch off the main supply. If caught, blame the rats. The plumberius beside you stretches, rubs his back, and stands. Flow will return by morning, he says, nodding. Assuming your neighbor doesn't stab it again. He trudges off into the shadows, his hammer clinking at his side. You watch him go, amazed that someone so grimy, so tired, so vital, could wield such quiet power over a city this vast. Because here's the truth. All roads may lead to Rome, but once you get there, you'd better hope the plumberius likes you. Otherwise, your bath stays cold, your wine pot never fills, and your toilet smells like betrayal. And speaking of toilets, it's time to visit one. A very public one. You follow the fading scent of sulfur and soak down a winding Roman alley until it gives way to something different. The air shifts. There's a faint sourness now. Earthy, humid, and unmistakably human. You pass a wall carved with graffiti, something about a gladiator's lost sandal, and step into a low stone archway. You've arrived. The public latrines. Here, finally, is where the grandeur of Roman plumbing meets the cold, unfiltered reality of what happens after dinner. The space is larger than you expect. Long benches line the walls, punctuated by evenly spaced oval holes, side by side. No dividers, no privacy. A few are in use. You blink. One man hums while reading a wax tablet. Another waves as you enter. A third is arguing about property lines while doing his business. Yes, everyone here hears you go. You shuffle to a vacant hole and sit, not quite comfortably, on a cool marble slab. Beneath you, a channel of water runs continuously, washing waste toward the great Cloaca Maxima, the central sewer system. That water, by the way, it was routed in via, you guessed it, lead pipes. Across your feet, another shallow waterway flows. A thinner stream, a foot rinse, and next to you lies a stick with a sponge on the end, soaking in the stream. You stare at it, then back at the man beside you, who's just set his down. Yes, that's the infamous tersorium, the Roman toilet paper. One communal sponge on a stick, rinsed between uses. You suddenly regret that fig tart you had earlier. But let's give credit where it's due. As disturbing as the tersorium might be to your modern sensibilities, the rest of the system is shockingly efficient. These latrines were marvels of public hygiene for their time. Fresh water flowed in regularly to flush waste and clean the space. The smell? Manageable. The structure? Surprisingly ornate, with mosaic floors, painted walls, even incense burners in the corners. One guy down the road gestures to a carved relief of Neptune and says, "Nice touch." Eh? Puts you in the mood. You're not sure what he means, and frankly, you don't want to know. The constant flow of water was crucial. Latrines were usually located near a branch of the aqueduct or fitted with redirected runoff from public baths. Sometimes bath water was reused, a charming thought. That warm bath from earlier could be flowing under your feet right now. Recycled luxury. A quirky historical tidbit: some latrines had musicians. Not officially, mind you. Just enterprising flute players who played background tunes, either to entertain or to mask certain acoustics. Either way, toilet jazz was a thing. But these latrines weren't just practical. They were social spaces. You discuss politics, gossip, share business deals. Pooping was practically networking. You wonder if Rome fell because someone couldn't close a deal while pinching a loaf. You overhear one man telling a friend, "Met with Flavius yesterday in the latrine. He says his water's been off for a week. His villa fountain's dry." The friend scoffs. Tell him to grease the plumber. And here's a juicy debate. Did using lead pipes in toilets actually contribute to poisoning? Some scholars argue that because wastewater didn't return to the drinking supply, the danger was minimal. Others point out that splashing, cleaning, and shared sponges meant plenty of exposure opportunities. No one's tested sponge residue for lead, thank the gods. You rise, adjust your tunic, and back away from the bench with practiced Roman grace. Don't look down, don't step in the channel. You rinse your hands in the small basin near the exit. Again, lead-fed. Again, surprisingly cool. As you walk out, you glance back. The hum of casual conversation continues without you. The latrine, for all its humble, awkward glory, is part of what makes Rome work. Water goes in, waste goes out, and all of it happens beneath your feet. You stroll into a sun-dappled courtyard where a marble fountain bubbles in the center. The water's clean, fresh. It sparkles. You could drink from it. But then you remember where it came from, how it flowed through miles of lead, how it danced through bathhouses, kitchens, and yes, even those cheerful social bathrooms. You hesitate. You're thirsty, but maybe not that thirsty. You lean against the stone wall, watching as a group of children fill clay jugs from the fountain, laughing and splashing. A dog drinks from the edge. A woman dips a cloth and wrings it out. All of them trusting, perhaps unknowingly, in the miracle of Roman engineering. But the lead? Always there. Silent. Heavy. Watching. You step away from the courtyard, thoughts spinning. Rome is a city of grandeur, yes, but it's also a city of plumbing. Every home, every bath, every latrine tells the same story. Water, channeled through poison, in pursuit of convenience and class. And just around the next corner, you'll find two old friends still bickering about that very topic. One swears by clay, the other swears by lead. Let's eavesdrop, shall we? The alley narrows as you move forward, your sandals scraping softly over worn stones. It's quieter here, shaded by overhanging terraces and creeping vines. You hear them before you see them. Two elderly men locked in what sounds like a decades-long debate, their voices bouncing off the walls like birds trapped in a basilica. "No, no, no, you old goat," the first one says, waving a crooked finger. "Lead is the future. Smooth, flexible, stronger than clay. That's why the emperors use it." The second scoffs. "Future? It tastes like blood and makes your teeth fall out. Terracotta doesn't poison your grandchildren, Gaius." You smile and lean casually against a wall to listen, pretending to inspect a fig cart nearby. The argument is timeless. Lead versus terracotta. Two plumbing philosophies. One empire. Gaius, the lead defender, jabs at the air with a stubby reed pen. You ever tried threading a clay pipe around a corner? It shatters like your patience. Lead bends. But it leaks, counters the terracotta lover, whom Gaius has clearly dubbed Cato the Crumbly. Clay's porous, yes, but it's not a neurotoxin. My cousin drank from a lead fountain for a year and started talking to chairs. They both pause, chuckle, and sip from their wine cups. Probably not lead-free either, ironically. You take a few steps closer and glance down at the ground near their feet. There, exposed by erosion or poor paving, are two types of pipe. One dull and gray, flattened slightly with time, lead. The other, rough and orange-brown, cracked at the joint, terracotta. They run side by side like rivals in a race to deliver bathwater. You crouch for a better look. The clay one is bulkier, needing thicker walls to survive pressure. But it has no metallic taste, no risk of dissolving when touched by vinegar or acidic wine. Lead, on the other hand, offers subtle luxury. Its joints are sealed with melted lead itself or wrapped with cloth soaked in pitch. Artisans can shape it with tools or even their bare hands. It curves where clay would shatter. But there's the lingering issue of, well, slowly poisoning everyone. A quirky detail. Romans were fully aware of both materials' pros and cons. Vitruvius, the famous Roman architect and engineer, actually warned against using lead pipes in his writings. He claimed lead caused pallid complexion and loose teeth. So what did the Romans do with this sage advice? Mostly ignored it. Historians still argue whether Vitruvius' warnings had any real impact. Some say his concerns were known but brushed aside due to lead's practicality. Others argue that pipe placement, often after the water had already passed through public cisterns, mitigated exposure. And a few insist that clay just wasn't fashionable enough for Rome's elite, and fashion always wins over science. You wander with your eyes, tracing where the pipes disappear into a nearby wall. A bronze fixture gleams faintly where the lead connects to a decorative spout. A lion's head, waterless now, but still baring its teeth like it's about to spit. Terracotta doesn't corrode. Cato mutters, clearly not finished. And it doesn't hiss in the summer. That's steam, not poison, Gaius replies. You can't help but wonder, how many homes had this exact same debate as they were built? Imagine a wealthy Roman landowner pacing around his atrium, deciding between luxury and longevity. Do I want a clean conscience or a clean fountain? The Roman water system, surprisingly, wasn't uniform. Some neighborhoods had miles of lead pipe. Others relied on open channels or terracotta lines, depending on their age, wealth, and access. Even within a single villa, you could find both materials woven through the same walls, like a plumbing patchwork quilt. And maintenance? That was a nightmare. Clay required replacement more often due to breakage. Lead required patching, sure, but it lasted longer if installed carefully. You imagine some overworked plumberius showing up to a cracked clay pipe, muttering, "Should have gone lead," before storming off to his next job. You shift your weight and glance around the courtyard. A boy runs past with a wooden hoop, his laughter bouncing against the stone. Above, a woman pours water into a rooftop planter, lead piping peeking out under her balcony. The argument between old friends continues behind you, looping back to the merits of water taste and Roman wine. That gets your attention. Apparently, some folks believed leads softened the harsh taste of poor wine. Others said it made it worse. But we'll swirl that particular glass later. For now, your eyes return to the pipes. A final thought nudges into your mind. Neither Gaius nor Cato is completely wrong. Rome didn't choose lead instead of terracotta, it used both. It played to their strengths, matched them to terrain, budget, and status. But as you walk away, their bickering fades, and a new realization settles over you. No matter the material, every pipe in Rome carried more than water. It carried choices about class, comfort, and the ever-present trade-off between elegance and consequence. You're not far now from a villa, a wealthy one, with its own private plumbing system, built to impress. And poison, perhaps, in every drop. Let's go knock on that front gate, shall we? The stone path curves gently upward as you leave the clamor of the working-class quarter behind. The smell of smoke and sweat fades, replaced by rosemary, warm bread, and faint incense. You're climbing the Palatine Hill now, prime real estate for the Roman elite. And at the crest stands a sprawling villa, all marble columns and fluttering silk curtains, with a doorman who gives you the kind of look that says, "You clearly don't belong here, but I'm too well trained to say it out loud." He steps aside, and you're in. This place is practically singing with water. It bubbles from wall fountains shaped like dolphins. It glides silently down decorative channels in the garden. It trickles from bronze spouts into fish ponds. And it's not just decoration, it's a symbol, a flex. Flowing water meant status. Only a few held the ius aquae, the legal right to pipe water into their homes. If you had that, you'd made it. You step over a thin rivulet running through the floor of the atrium. That's not a leak, it's intentional. A cooling channel that lets air and water mingle, keeping the summer heat at bay. And yes, it's fed by lead piping that snakes unseen beneath the mosaic tiles, carefully installed to be heard but not seen. A servant offers you a cloth to wipe your feet. Another hands you a cup of water, cool, crystal clear, slightly metallic. You sip politely and consider the irony. The richer the Roman, the purer the water, and the more lead it probably passed through before reaching their lips. You follow the sound of water into the peristyle, a courtyard lined with trimmed hedges and pomegranate trees. A central fountain burbles gently, its jet arcing into a shallow pool. The pipe beneath, you guessed it, a fistula made from thick, well-sealed lead. A boy runs past, chased by a dog, both of them dripping wet. They've just come from the private balneum, the in-house bath suite. Not even public officials had this kind of setup. Tepidarium, caldarium, frigidarium, just like a public bath, but better smelling, better dressed, and significantly more exclusive. You wander in after them. The walls are lined with polished marble. Decorative niches hold oils, towels, and carved busts. Steam drifts upward like lazy ghosts. Slaves tend to the hypocaust fire beneath, stoking it to keep the floors warm. The bath water itself? Always ready, always hot. Thanks to a combination of clever engineering and the relentless power of gravity-fed plumbing. And that plumbing is everywhere. In the walls, beneath the benches, along the edge of the roof. The lead pipes here don't just serve, they perform. They're shaped, sealed, and sometimes even engraved with the family's name. Because why not turn your plumbing into a branding opportunity? A quirky detail. Some of the wealthiest Romans had water clocks in their villas, basically hourglasses powered by dripping water through lead valves. If your guests could watch time flow with your water, you'd basically won dinner before it even started. You recline on a cushioned bench and listen. Outside, the murmurs of dinner prep. Inside, the gentle burble of invisible pipes. It's peaceful, but not quite innocent. Because here's the darker truth. While lead pipes were omnipresent, lead exposure varied wildly by class. The poor often got their water from public fountains. Cool, clean, but less lead exposure overall due to shorter piping and shared sources. The wealthy? They had personalized systems, kilometers of lead pipe under their estates, heated water constantly flowing through soft metal tubes. Their water was a luxury and a risk. Historians still debate whether the Roman elite were disproportionately affected by lead poisoning. Some cite symptoms: infertility, mental decline, gout. Others say it's exaggerated. Maybe the mineral scale inside the pipes protected them. Maybe the lead never dissolved enough to matter. Or maybe, just maybe, those lavish villas were silently sickening their owners, one glorious bath at a time. You wander into the kitchen. The chef is simmering something thick and purple in a heavy pan. Grape must, boiling down for sweet wine syrup. It hisses gently, the scent oddly pleasant. But the pan? It's lead, as are the clamps sealing the aqueduct feed for the kitchen spigot. You catch a faint, metallic tang in the air. No one here seems to notice. Or care. You pass a storeroom stacked with amphorae, each labeled with painted marks. Some hold water, others wine. Others a syrupy substance called sapa, sweet, thick, and beloved by Romans for flavoring food and drink. The cook smiles proudly. Boiled in lead pots. The taste is smoother. You grimace. Because you know what they didn't. That boiling acidic grape juice in lead vessels creates lead acetate, a compound once known as sugar of lead. It's sweet, delicious, and deadly. But in Rome, sweetness trumped science. Still, the elite weren't just drinking lead. They bathed in it, cooked with it, surrounded themselves with it. Pipes under their bedrooms. Fountains in every hall. Sometimes even lead-lined wine vessels. Because why not bring the plumbing straight to the party? You step out into the garden again and glance back at the villa. a monument to wealth, a showcase of power, and beneath it all, a slow, silent river of lead. You start to walk back downhill, toward the bustle and grime of the lower quarters. And as you go, you begin to wonder, did anyone back then really connect the dots? Some doctors, maybe. A few philosophers. The occasional cook with a suspicious cough. But the system was in place, and water flowed beautifully, smoothly, luxuriously, even if it carried whispers of illness in every drop. Down below, the clamor of street vendors grows louder. You hear water trickling into a public basin, a fountain splashing, a pipe creaking softly behind a tavern wall. You're about to step into that tavern, because inside, two doctors are debating something you've been wondering all along. Is this stuff actually killing us? The tavern is tucked beneath an archway, dimly lit and humming with the kind of murmured conversation that fills in every silence with secrets. You duck inside, brushing past a curtain of woven reeds, and step into a low-ceilinged room heavy with the smell of roast meat, sour wine, and wet stone. A lead pipe leaks gently into a ceramic basin near the back wall. A boy refills pitchers with that same cool water, sloshing it carelessly as he rushes between tables. No one pays attention, except you. Over in the corner, two men lean over a half-empty jug of wine. They're not dressed like your average tavern clientele. No dirt under the nails, no scuffed sandals. These two are scholars, physicians, maybe philosophers, hunched in heated debate. You sidle closer, sliding onto a nearby bench, pretending to study the grain of the wood. Telling you Plinius the Younger was right. One says, voice low but emphatic. Too much lead, and the body turns sluggish. The mind clouded. The humor's unbalanced. The other shakes his head. Speculation. We've all seen men live to 50 with lead pipes in their homes, in their wine vessels, in their blood, if you believe the hysteria. You sip your drink, diluted wine, warm and slightly metallic. The irony is thick as the air. It's the oldest medical debate in Rome. Is lead hurting us? And the truth? No one really knows for sure. Not even now. The first doctor continues, tapping his fingers against his cup. I treated a senator last month. Perfect teeth one day, gum rot the next. Fatigue, lethargy, strange moods. He drank only from a lead goblet. Coincidence? The other shrugs. Maybe he offended a god. That's the fallback explanation for most things in Rome, to be fair. You lean back, letting your eyes scan the room. Above the kitchen door hangs a lead pipe, bent slightly where it passes through a wooden beam. There's a drip forming at the joint, landing rhythmically into a clay bowl below. No one's fixing it. And the thing is, this isn't uncommon. Rome is full of these quiet leaks, these heavy arteries slowly bleeding into the daily lives of its people. Some are patched, others ignored. The water continues to flow, and the city continues to drink. A quirky historical tidbit. Some Romans believed drinking wine from lead vessels made it sweeter and more potent. A strange but widely accepted enhancement. Lead not only lined pipes, but wine urns, cooking pots, even cosmetics. That ivory sheen on noble cheeks? Probably powdered lead. Glowing skin dulled minds. Historians still argue whether this widespread exposure caused mass poisoning or whether certain factors, like mineral deposits in water, buffered the effects. Skeletal remains from across the empire show elevated lead levels, particularly among the wealthy. But pinning down exact symptoms? Murky at best. The first physician is now drawing a diagram in wine with his fingertip on the table. You glance over. It's a crude sketch of a stomach, with arrows pointing outwards. He mutters, lead disrupts the digestion. Bloating, weakness, irritability, gout. I've seen the symptoms 100 times. His companion grins. I've seen people drink lamp oil by accident and survive. Romans are resilient. And that's the heart of the matter, resilience. Rome is a city built on it. The people believe they're strong enough to handle anything. Barbarians, fires, bad emperors, even the slow seep of a heavy metal through every pipe in the city. You stand and walk toward the corner basin. The water's clear, inviting. You dip your hand into it. Cool, refreshing, deceptively harmless. Someone behind you coughs, a deep, wet rattle that cuts through the background chatter. You glance over. An older man, gray-bearded and pale, sits alone at a corner table, his cup untouched. His eyes are distant. His hands tremble slightly as he reaches for his drink. You wonder, is it age? Or something else? Rome doesn't make it easy to draw lines between cause and effect. Everyone eats strange food, breathes in smoke, bathes in communal steam. 100 variables. And in the middle of it all, lead, constant, silent, invisible. You return to your bench as the doctors shift topics, from lead to leeches, from poison to prayer. Their words fade into a low hum. You feel the heaviness of the wine in your veins, the whisper of lead perhaps trailing behind it. Then someone new enters the tavern. A housemaid, soaked from the rain, her hair matted to her cheeks. She carries a bucket with a broken handle, and she looks exhausted. The tavern keeper offers her a seat and fills a bowl with fresh water. She sips, smiles faintly. Tastes better today, she says. You know what's changed? The pipe feeding the basin was just replaced, patched this morning by a plumberius using a slightly different lead alloy. Slightly less acidic reaction, slightly sweeter taste. A minor change in the metal, a major change in perception. And that, you realize, is the essence of Roman plumbing. Every drop shaped by the materials, every decision weighed between ease and effect. You step back outside into the cooling evening. Rain slicks the streets. Water pools in gutters. Pipes gurgle behind walls and beneath your feet. You follow one such pipe now, watching where it vanishes between two buildings. It's been tampered with. There's a crude patch near a corner and a fresh trail of water snakes across the stones. Tampering. Theft. Secret valves. You smile. It's time to peek into the underbelly of Rome's plumbing, where pipes aren't just tools, but battlegrounds. Rain trickles softly off tiled roofs as you make your way through a shadowy side street. Rome is quieter now, more secretive in the dark. The thunder of carts and chatter of merchants has faded, replaced by the occasional bark of a dog, the flutter of pigeons under an eave, and, if you really listen, the muted gurgle of water flowing where it shouldn't. You're following a leak. Not a burst or a disaster, just a subtle trail, soaked stone, a little puddle under a barrel, and a faint hiss from behind a tavern wall. You crouch near a clay brick corner and lean in. There it is, the sound of an unauthorized tap. Someone is stealing water. It's more common than you'd think. In a city of aqueducts and lead arteries, there's always someone looking for a shortcut. And the lead pipes? Soft, silent, and remarkably easy to tamper with. You just need a chisel, a little bribery, and the willingness to poke holes in imperial infrastructure. You slip behind the building. A door creaks open into a dim cellar, where the air is heavy with mildew and secrets. A narrow ladder leads down to a crawl space. And there, hunched over with a candle, is a man with ink-stained fingers and a nervous glance. Don't step on that, he whispers, gesturing at a lead junction glinting with fresh solder. Still warm. You nod, pretending you belong here. He goes back to work. What you're watching is illegal. A derivatio aquae, an unauthorized diversion of water. He's tapping a private pipe that feeds the domus across the street. Just a trickle, he says. Just enough for a bath and a kitchen jug. No one will notice. Until someone does. Rome's water system may seem vast, but it's not invisible. Inspectors, called curators aquarum, roam the city looking for exactly this kind of thing. They check flow rates, inspect manholes, and compare legal pipe sizes to what's actually installed. The difference between a 5-pound pipe and a 10-pound pipe might mean a personal bath versus just a daily hand wash. Quirky fact of the night. Romans measured pipes by the weight of lead per foot, remember? So upgrading your pipe size wasn't just plumbing, it was politics. And in the shadowy parts of town, pipe tampering was practically an art form. You move on, now watching more carefully. You pass another alley where a spout has been rigged with a hidden valve, barely visible behind a grapevine trellis. Someone's getting free water for their dye shop. You can tell by the purple stain on the cobblestones. Maybe the inspector hasn't noticed. Or maybe he has, and he's been paid not to. Historians still debate how widespread corruption in the water system really was. Some records suggest the curators were diligent, issuing fines, enforcing pipe laws. Others paint a different picture, where enforcement was spotty, bribes were common, and wealth determined not just how much water you got, but whether you had to obey the rules at all. You reach a fountain in a small plaza, where a boy is filling amphory under cover of night. He pauses when he sees you, but doesn't run. He's young, confident, maybe working for a tavern owner who wants early morning stock without paying the public water fee. He points toward a pipe emerging from the wall, old, patched, dented. A small secondary pipe branches off, tucked behind a chipped mosaic. It was already there, he says. We just remembered it. Clever. Rome's underground is full of forgotten pipes. Lead ages, shifts, gets buried. Sometimes it's hard to tell if a water line is legal or a century-old relic that's been quietly resurrected. The line between theft and inheritance gets blurrier the deeper you go. You crouch near the fountain, running your fingers along the base of the pipe. There's a faint mark, an old stamp, barely visible now. A name, Titus Claudius Felix. He's long dead, but his plumbing lives on, now feeding water to someone else's business. And that's the thing about lead. It lasts. It doesn't rust like iron. It doesn't crumble like terracotta. It just softens with time. Silently, willingly. You move into another side street where a domus has been abandoned. Vines creep over its broken walls. Inside, the tiles are cracked, but still beautiful. You notice a lead pipe emerging from the rubble, twisted at the end. Someone tried to wrench it out, probably to sell it for scrap. Lead was valuable, after all. Easy to melt down, repurpose, recast into something else. Even into curse tablets. Yes, really. Here's your fringe tidbit for tonight. Romans used thin sheets of lead to inscribe depictions. Magical curses usually buried in graves or thrown into wells. May Gaius lose his voice, one might say. Or, may the one who stole my sandals suffer diarrhea until the Saturnalia. All carved into former plumbing material. A second life for secondhand rage. You run your hand along the edge of a pipe that's been notched crudely. Another attempt at a tap. Whoever did this wasn't skilled. The pipe cracked. Water sprayed. They patched it with wool and pitch, but you can see the stains. Not everyone had a good plumbarius on speed dial. Tampering had risks. You could be fined, beaten, even lose your water rights altogether. But for many Romans, especially the ones living on the edge of privilege, it was worth it. A few extra gallons could mean clean clothes, hot meals, or a backyard fish pond to show off to your neighbors. You rise and stretch, brushing dust from your knees. Around you, Rome sleeps uneasily, its vast plumbing network humming like the veins of some great beast. You can almost hear the flow beneath your feet, rushing, slowing, branching, leaking, alive. And just as you start to walk again, a sudden gurgle erupts from a nearby drain. A deep, wet glorp, followed by a splash. A cat darts away in terror. Something just went very wrong. That's your cue to look deeper, not into theft or tampering, but into the rules. Because yes, believe it or not, Rome had a plumbing code. Written, enforced, sort of, and full of glorious contradictions. Let's go flip through the imperial fine print. You follow the sound of that messy glorp into a narrow service alley, where water seeps from beneath a stone curb, bubbling faintly from a place it absolutely should not be bubbling. The smell isn't terrible yet, but the worry is in the detail. The leak isn't a sign of nature, but of negligence. You crouch near the flow. It glints faintly under the moonlight, snaking along the edge of the alley toward a cracked inspection tile. Someone's pipe has burst. You can tell by the discoloration in the stone, the way the water pools rather than moves. And somewhere nearby, a curator aquarum will be scribbling furiously on a wax tablet. Yes, Rome had water inspectors. And Rome had laws. More than just guidelines. They had entire edicts, plumbing codes, written in long, looping Latin, to govern every drop that flowed into the city. You could be fined for using too much water. You could be sued for rerouting a neighbor's pipe. You could even be prosecuted for damaging public aqueducts, which, to be fair, were considered only slightly less sacred than temples. Tonight, you're heading to the office of one such inspector. It's not grand. Just a few scroll shelves, a bench, and a low table piled with seals and tools. There's a lead weight on the table, an official pipe gauge, and beside it, a small metal stamp. You pick it up. The letters read, Aqui Augusti, the mark of a sanctioned water line. You see, all legal lead pipes had to be stamped, with the name of the owner, the water commissioner, even the emperor, depending on who installed it. These markings served as a kind of plumbing passport, proof that your pipe had permission to exist. And here's where things get messy. Because the moment you introduce permissions, people start finding ways around them. The inspector scrolls through his tablet, murmuring, 12 reports this week. 2 burst pipes. 3 illegal spurs. Someone jammed a bronze tap into a public feed and redirected it to a laundry. Clever, but sloppy. He sighs. You ask him how they even measure this stuff. He gestures to the lead weight again. Pipe diameter. Flow strength. Location. Sometimes we go by sound. That's not a joke. Trained ears could detect flow irregularities through walls. Lead has a particular echo when water rushes through it too fast, like listening to a stone throat clearing. He walks you to a shelf where several clay tablets rest, each marked with case notes. Pipe widened without permit. Drain rerouted beneath bakery. Unknown connection feeding illegal fountain. Illegal fountains. That's a phrase that will stick with you. Quirky fact. Rome's water laws even dictated when and where you could install fountains. You needed a permit. You needed an inspector's approval. And, in some cases, you had to agree not to show off too much, because nothing incited neighborly rage faster than a personal cascade while your neighbor's plants died of thirst. The inspector shows you a list of penalties. Minor offenses? A fee. Moderate ones? Pipe removal and fines. Severe cases? Confiscation of the property's ius aquae, your legal right to receive water. Imagine that. Your villa still stands. Your roof doesn't leak, but the water stops forever. Historians still argue whether these laws were strictly enforced. Some suggest that only the wealthy truly had anything to fear, since they were the ones with enough pipe to regulate. The poor? They just prayed to the fountain gods and hoped for a decent bucketful. You step back outside with a newfound appreciation for Roman bureaucracy, because underneath all the grandeur, all the empire, there was an empire of paperwork. A dripping empire. A servant hurries past with a folded scroll marked with a lead seal. A repair request, probably. He doesn't even glance at the bubbling water on the street. Everyone here seems used to it, like background music. You follow him, through winding corridors, down a set of stairs, and into a cramped shop where 3 men huddle over a cracked pipe section. It's stamped. Barely. The letters are worn, and the name scratched out. Illegal replacement, one mutters. They tried to file off the stamp and add their own. You watch as they hold up a replacement piece, freshly cast, gleaming dully in the lamplight. It'll be installed quietly tonight, no questions asked. The inspector might never know. Or he'll know and choose not to care. It's a dance. Rome loves its rules, but loves its workarounds just as much. Your eye catches a board nailed to the wall, a simple chart showing legal pipe sizes and flow rates. 5 pound per foot, 7, 10. Anything over 10 required senatorial permission. That's not hyperbole. If you wanted serious plumbing, you needed serious friends. And some took advantage of that. Fringe detail time. There's evidence that a few ambitious homeowners bribed imperial officials to get oversized pipes installed just before an aqueduct reached capacity. Why? Because once it was full, no new connections could be made. You had to get in early, like buying prime seats at the chariot races. Water was clout. You leave the shop and wander along a quiet street, reflecting on what you've just seen. Rome wasn't just a city of fountains and forums. It was a city of rules. Flow regulated by law, by metal, by hand. Water here was wealth. Control. And every pipe had a story. Above you, a pipe drips rhythmically from a second-story balcony. You imagine the inspector rolling his eyes. Or maybe smirking. Because sometimes the rules bend. Sometimes they're ignored. And sometimes they smell bad. Which brings us to another kind of Roman ritual, bathhouse gossip. You've seen the pipes. You've met the plumbers. But now it's time to meet the people using all that water and saying things they probably shouldn't while they soak. The sun has returned, filtering through the Roman haze with that soft, golden warmth that makes marble glow and shadows stretch. You're walking back toward one of the public thermae, not the modest kind you visited before, but one of the grand ones. Maybe the baths of Caracalla, maybe Diocletian's palace of steam. It doesn't matter. You'll know it by the steam curling from the roof tiles and the sharp scent of oil and citrus drifting in the air. Inside, it's a cathedral of water and stone. You step through arched corridors, passing servants carrying amphorae of warmed olive oil, cloth bundles, trays of fruit. The sound of splashing echoes like laughter in a cave. You turn a corner and enter the tepidarium, the warm room. Moist air clings to your skin instantly. Around you, Roman citizens recline on stone benches. Some are wrapped in thin towels, others fully nude and unapologetic. Their voices bounce off the walls, murmurs and chuckles mixing with the splash of water trickling into basins. Lead pipes, hidden behind smooth marble, keep the temperature steady. And with heat comes gossip. Oh, did you hear about Flavius? His villa's fountain stopped running. Wife's furious. No water for her hair rinse. Serves him right. He insulted that plumberius last month. Probably drinking vinegar wine again. You know how it rots the pipes. You settle onto a bench and listen. Here in the baths, the pipes don't just deliver water, they deliver stories. Every leak, every burst, every dry spout becomes a tale. A punchline. Or worse, the scandal. Because in Rome, your plumbing says a lot about you. If your bath's not hot enough, you're poor. If your fountain's dry, you've fallen out of favor. If your latrine doesn't flush, well, the jokes write themselves. And here's the kicker, everyone notices. A man beside you adjusts his towel, squinting at the steam drifting above a bronze faucet. I think they switched the lead feed again. Water tastes flatter today, less tang. You nod. There were actual connoisseurs of water in ancient Rome. People who claimed they could tell the source aqueduct just by flavor. Aqua Marcia, slightly sweet. Aqua Appia, harder, chalkier. Each aqueduct had a different mineral profile. And, depending on the path it took through the city's web of pipes, a different lead profile too. Quirky tidbit. Elite Romans occasionally brought their own water to the baths. Not wine. Water. Poured from personal urns into the communal basins. Think of it as the ancient version of bringing your own filtered bottle to the gym. You follow the voices into the caldarium, the hot room. It's louder here. More steam, more sweat, and more accusations. I tell you, Septimus's kid isn't right in the head. He drinks from the kitchen tap every day, straight from the pipe. Gods help him. That tap's old lead. Pre-Augustus. You might as well be licking a sword. And there it is again, that lingering worry. Lead poisoning. It floats through the conversation like a rumor no one can quite prove, but no one can quite shake either. One man laughs nervously. Another shifts uncomfortably on the bench. Historians still argue whether the Romans knew what they were doing to themselves. These offhand comments, like, that water's too heavy, or he's acting like he's been breathing solder fumes, suggest some awareness. But whether they took it seriously, that's harder to say. You dip your toes into the small hot pool at the center of the room. It's hotter than you expected, almost sharp. You lean back against the stone rim and glance at the spout, a stylized wolf's head, water bubbling from its mouth. There's a thin rim of mineral buildup where the water meets the air. You scrape it gently with your nail. It flakes. Lime mostly, but possibly other things, too. Because let's not forget, the bathwater wasn't just heated. It was recirculated, redirected, reused. Sometimes it was runoff from fountains. Sometimes the leftover splash from a frigidarium was boiled and pushed into the next room, all routed through a network of lead piping that no one had fully mapped. Maintenance workers, like those plumberii you met earlier, had a nickname for bathhouse pipes, snakes of stone. Always shifting, always sweating, always hissing. You sit in silence for a while, letting the background noise wash over you. You hear a joke about someone slipping in the latrine. You hear a whispered bet about whether the emperor's mistress really has her own personal aqueduct. You hear someone humming a tune that's definitely not Roman, but no one corrects him. This isn't just a bath. It's Rome's unofficial parliament. And water, piped, heated, scented, is what makes it all possible. You dry off with a rough cloth and step into the frigidarium, where the cold hits you like a slap from Neptune himself. The pool here is smaller, calmer, the voice is lower. You sit beside two old men who talk in half sentences. Water's slower today. Pipe might be pinched. Or tampered. That merchant's been eyeing the corner valve. You glance at the wall and see it. A tiny door, half hidden behind a column, leads to the pipe chamber. Access for repairs or quiet modifications. The old men stare at it too, eyes narrowed. You wonder if they'll report it. Or do it themselves. You leave the bathhouse just as twilight settles, your skin still damp, your mind spinning. Because you've just spent hours immersed in Rome's most casual institution, where water, lead, and gossip flow together in an endless loop. And as you walk home, your ears still ringing with whispered conspiracies and lead-laced complaints, you wonder, who makes all this work? Who melts the metal, seals the joints, sculpts the snakes? You're about to find out. You're heading to the forge. You wake early the next morning to the sound of hammers. Not the rhythmic thuds of construction in the forum, but sharper, closer, more metallic. It's coming from the forge, Rome's lesser-known furnace of civilization. Not where swords are made, or coins stamped. This is something quieter, smokier, and somehow even more essential. You're standing now at the entrance to a plumberious workshop. It's not much to look at, a wide, soot-smudged doorway, a roof patched with lead sheets that shimmer dully in the rising light. Inside, the air is warm with the scent of burning charcoal, melted metal, and something faintly medicinal. You cough once, then again, and step in. This is where lead becomes plumbing. The space is cluttered, every surface coated in fine gray dust. Lead pigs, heavy ingots stamped with the imperial seal, line one wall, stacked like sleeping soldiers. They bear the names of their origin: Hispania, Gallia, even Britannia, where veins of lead were gouged from the earth to feed Rome's endless appetite. A young man is working near the back. Bare-chested, face streaked with sweat and soot, he stands over a furnace, feeding pig after pig into a wide crucible. The lead melts fast, turning to a slow-moving, gleaming pool. It doesn't bubble or spark like iron, just softens, sighs, and sinks. That's the beauty of lead, you realize. It gives in without resistance. You watch as he pours the molten metal into a wooden form, shaped like a narrow trough, open at one side. The mold hisses, smokes, and hardens quickly. In just minutes, he lifts out a new pipe segment, soft, straight, and still warm. But that's only the beginning. He moves it to the shaping bench, where another craftsman joins him, older, more cautious. Together, they gently hammer the pipe into a curve, then seal the seam with a molten bead of more lead, smoothed with a wool-wrapped rod. No welding masks, no gloves, just experience and permanent fingerprints. Quirky detail for the day? Romans sometimes shaped pipes by rolling lead sheets around wooden dowels, then melting the seam closed. It was delicate work. A bad angle meant uneven flow. A poor seal meant leaks. A weak mix meant corrosion. And here's the problem. Sometimes that corrosion wasn't visible. You step closer to a row of older pipe segments leaning against the wall. Some are perfectly smooth. Others warped, dented, or stained green where water mixed with oxygen and slowly began to eat through the metal. One has a jagged break, clearly caused by someone applying too much force, probably while digging up a rival's line. A manager walks over and greets you with a nod. He gestures to a long scroll hanging near the door, Rome's standard diameters and weights for lead pipes. It's written like a poem to regulation. Quinaria, Snaria, Decimaria. Each name corresponds to a weight, 5, 6, 10 Roman pounds per foot, and each has its own flow rate. This one here, he says, tapping a pipe the width of your wrist. 10 pound. High volume. Only for fountains, villas, and bathhouses. Illegal to install without permission. You ask if anyone ever installs them anyway. He grins. Only every day. You follow him outside, where more pipe segments are being loaded onto carts. Some are straight. Others are U-shaped, L-shaped, or fitted with bronze valves. The valves are rare and expensive, used for flow control, sometimes theft prevention, sometimes theft itself. You pass a small side bench where a craftsman is engraving a name onto a freshly made pipe. Lucius Cassius Longinus. The man's villa will soon sparkle with water, but only after this pipe, stamped, traced, and blessed by bureaucracy, is buried in the soil. Historians still argue whether the artisans working with lead suffered long-term effects. Some describe symptoms among lead workers: shaking hands, pale complexions, memory loss. Others say these reports are exaggerated or misunderstood. After all, lead exposure was common throughout Rome, not just in the forges. Still, you watch the young smiths wipe sweat from their brows, their hands dark with dust, their eyes sharp. They seem proud of their craft. And why shouldn't they be? They're shaping the veins of a living city. One of them lifts a finished coil of pipe, neatly bent, expertly sealed, and says, "This one's going to a senator's daughter. For her new fountain. Swan-shaped." You blink. Swan-shaped. He laughs. The fountain, not the pipe. Though that would be impressive. They wrap the pipe in cloth and place it gently on a padded cart. Not because the lead is delicate, but because the joints are. One bad jolt, one hairline crack, and the flow stops. Or worse, leaks into the wall and causes a mold bloom that smells like Neptune's armpit. You return to the forge itself, watching as another batch of lead is poured. The heat, the weight, the rhythm of it all, it's hypnotic. You begin to understand why Rome never gave up on lead. It was just too easy, too responsive, too perfect for a city that needed everything fast and everything functional. Fringe detail time. Lead wasn't just for pipes. These workshops also made coffins, roofing sheets, curse tablets, sling bullets, and weights. The material was everywhere. And that meant that Rome itself was heavy, literally built on soft metal bones. You leave the forge, a little dazed by the smoke, a little wiser about the alchemy of infrastructure. Outside, the pipes are being hauled away, clattering softly like bones in a cart. And as you watch one disappear down the street, headed toward yet another villa, you realize something. Every pipe they make today might still be there 2,000 years from now. Buried, forgotten, still holding secrets. But not all the secrets are silent. Some taste sweet. And that taste? It comes from wine, sapa, and the delicious danger simmering in every Roman kitchen. You're going to visit one next. The scent hits you before the door opens. It's thick, heady, and almost delightful, somewhere between roasted figs, aged wine, and caramelizing grapes. You're standing in the threshold of a Roman kitchen, a culina, and what they're cooking isn't dinner. It's poison. Sweet, sticky, centuries-old poison. Welcome to the world of sapa, Rome's favorite syrup. You step inside, ducking under a low wooden beam blackened with years of smoke. Clay jugs line the shelves, bronze pans rest over glowing coals, and a pot bubbles in the center of it all. It's filled with dark purple liquid, wine must, boiling down slowly into something thicker, shinier, sweeter. And the pot? Lead. Not bronze. Not clay. Pure, softly gleaming lead. You watch as a cook leans over, stirs gently with a wooden ladle, and grins at the aroma. "Another hour," he says. "It'll be perfect." You want to stop him. You want to shout, "Do you know what you're doing?" But he does. They all did. See, Romans discovered early on that reducing grape must in lead pots created a syrup that was smoother, sweeter, more flavorful. Modern chemists later discovered why. Boiling acidic juice in lead cookware forms lead acetate, once known as sugar of lead. It's sweet, addictive, and, well, lethal over time. But in ancient Rome, it was a gourmet's dream. You look around the kitchen. There's a side table where the syrup will eventually be poured into small amphorae. Some of it will be mixed into wine to cut acidity. Some will be added to sauces. Some will be stirred into desserts for children. No one here sees danger, only flavor. You glance at the rest of the cookware. There's terracotta, yes, and a few bronze pans. But for long simmers, for reductions and syrups, lead. Always lead. Because lead spreads heat evenly. It doesn't scorch as quickly. It makes everything taste just a little rounder. Quirky detail. Elite Roman chefs had special lead-lined vessels just for sapa. Recipes from Apicius, the famous Roman cookbook, call for it by name. They measured it carefully, used it liberally, and praised its luxurious taste. A bottle of good sapa was like having saffron or imported cinnamon. It showed you were cultured, sophisticated, refined, and possibly full of heavy metals. Historians still argue just how much lead was ingested this way. Some claim the quantities were small enough to be harmless. Others point to symptoms found in elite skeletons, bone deformities, gout, infertility. The sweet tang of sapa may have left more than a pleasant aftertaste. You turn your attention back to the bubbling pot. The surface has thickened, forming slow, lazy swirls as the cook stirs. He dips a finger, tastes, smiles. "Better than honey," he murmurs. You nod slowly. That's exactly what many Romans believed. Sapa was cheaper than honey, easier to make. And unlike honey, it didn't crystallize or spoil quickly. It became a staple in pantries, poured into wine for guests, brushed onto meat before roasting, even added to cough remedies. You move to a shelf where small vessels are cooling. You lift one, still warm. The glaze is beautiful, but there's a ring of residue around the inside, a pale sheen that catches the light just so. You set it down carefully. Because here's the quiet truth. This kitchen, with its expert chef, its prized ingredients, its ancient recipes, is a slow-motion disaster. Not by design, not by negligence, but by trust. Trust in tradition, trust in taste. And that trust was toxic. You hear a clatter, someone's dropped a spoon, and turn to see a child, no more than 10, licking a bit of sapa off her finger. She scrunches her face and giggles. Tastes like raisins. You smile faintly, then frown, because children absorb lead faster than adults. You step outside for air. The kitchen opens into a courtyard shaded by vines. A servant is pouring water into a shallow basin to rinse herbs. You recognize the spout, a thin lead pipe, bent at a strange angle. It creaks slightly as the water flows. The basin already has a faint chalky ring around its edge. Mineral buildup, perhaps, or something more. You glance up. A small aqueduct channel runs just above the courtyard wall, pouring a steady stream into a reservoir. It's filtered, controlled, lead-lined, and entirely normal. That's what's unnerving. The sheer normalcy of it all. Lead wasn't an occasional danger. It was built into the walls, threaded through the kitchens, baked into the daily bread of Roman life. Even wine itself wasn't safe. Sapa wasn't just a syrup, it was a winemaker's trick. Adding a splash masked bitterness, covered flaws, added sweetness. Inferior wines were suddenly palatable. Great wines, even greater. You think back to that tavern, to the doctors arguing in the corner. He drinks from the tap every day, straight from the pipe. That wine tastes sweeter. Something's wrong. And now, you see the whole picture. The wine wasn't just corrupted at the vineyard. It was boiled in lead pots, stored in lead-sealed jugs, poured through lead spouts into lead-lined cups. A drink shared with friends, and with a toxin. Still, the Romans toasted happily. They clinked glasses and praised Bacchus and talked politics and laughed over roast goose and honeyed dates. The danger never stopped the feast. Fringe detail for the curious. Modern historians have attempted to recreate Roman sapa using both lead and non-lead vessels. The result? Only the lead-cooked versions achieved that famous, elusive sweetness. The others were bland, flat, disappointing. You stand in the courtyard, staring at a vine heavy with grapes. The irony isn't lost on you. They grew the fruit. They pressed the juice. They boiled it to perfection in pots that would betray them. And still, every home wanted sapa. Every guest expected it. Every chef perfected it. The pipe in the courtyard shudders. Someone's turned on a valve inside. Water pressure shifts. A few droplets splatter the stones. You wonder, how much lead does it take to change a life? A spoonful? A potful? A childhood of sweet syrups? You walk away slowly, your sandals tapping against the stone. You're not heading to another kitchen. You're going to the streets. The hidden corners. The basements. The places where pipes get switched, fountains rerouted, neighbors betrayed. Because Rome doesn't just cook with lead. It cheats with it too. The sun dips low again as you drift back into the tangled back streets of Rome. Gone are the clean villas, the chirping fountains, the steaming kitchens. You're walking now where the city frays at the edges, where its secrets puddle in cracked stone and forgotten gutters. You pass a bakery with a dry spout, bread, but no water. A tanner's stall with a suspiciously strong flow, despite the drought. And a public fountain where the pressure changes every time someone lights a candle to Minerva. You smile. Something's off. And in Rome, that usually means someone's gotten creative with their pipes. You stop beside a narrow alley, where a drain gurgles and hiccups. The scent is complex. Mineral water, damp moss, and a little mischief. Someone nearby is playing plumber, but not the legal kind. You follow the sound into a basement. It's low-ceilinged, candlelit, damp, and crawling with lead. Literally. Pipes run along the walls like vines, some new, some ancient, others patched with what looks suspiciously like wine corks and wax. At the center of the room is a small, hand-built reservoir, bubbling with illegally rerouted aqueduct water. You raise your eyebrows. The man tending it, grubby tunic, quick eyes, grins as he stirs the surface. Welcome to my little spring. You ask how he gets away with it. He shrugs. Old lead. Forgotten lines. A few splices. A few coins in the right palm. This is the shadow world of Roman water. Off-grid, underfoot, and very much alive. Rome's aqueducts were above reproach, but once water hit the city walls, chaos. People tampered, redirected, spliced, and lead, malleable, loyal, easy to reseal, made it all possible. You peer at a branch joint he's just finished. The weld is messy but tight. It leads up through the floor to a dye shop above. He doesn't work for them, exactly. He just helps them stay competitive. Fringe detail. Some tampered pipes were even decorated, painted to blend in with murals or buried inside statues. There are recorded cases of fountains shaped like lions whose mouths were fed by illegal junctions, hidden inside the legs. Rome's inspectors, those curators aquarum, were always behind. There were just too many pipes, too many buildings, too many creative homeowners. You hear a sharp pop, a pipe joint under pressure. Nothing, the man mutters, tightening a cloth wrap around a leaking seam. Just the gods reminding me I'm not one of them. He's not a plumber by trade. He's a water fixer, an underground artisan, someone who knows the value of a trickle when the city runs dry. And he's not alone. You leave the basement and step into a quiet plaza. A girl is filling jugs at a fountain fed by the Aqua Virgo line. Behind her, two older men argue near a garden valve. You hear snippets. Too much flow. His vine's growing faster than mine. That's not natural. They suspect each other of foul play. Secret taps. Lead reroutes. Water envy. In a city where everything flows, control of that flow means power. And prestige. You pass a townhouse where the wall has a new patch. Fresher plaster. Faint wet stain below. Behind it, probably a recent valve addition. Possibly illegal. Historians still argue about how much water theft really occurred in Rome. Some say it was rampant. Others insist it was exaggerated. Anxious officials crying wolf to justify inspections and fees. But the evidence remains. Patches in the plaster, odd pipe angles, fountains that flow harder at midnight than noon. You wander into a warehouse near the Tiber, converted now into a cistern. Inside, massive lead-line tanks collect runoff from rooftops, baths, even temple spouts. The lead sheets shimmer in torchlight. You touch one, smooth, cold, ancient. Lead isn't just for delivery. It's for storage, protection, control. Quirky fact. Some Roman temples even used lead sheets beneath altars to keep sacred spring water separate from worldly sources, as if holiness could be piped and partitioned like anything else. You stand still for a moment, breathing in damp air and silence. Because now, the question grows larger. How much lead was actually used in Rome? You picture it. Miles of aqueducts, thousands of homes, endless baths, fountains, kitchens, latrines. Every pipe, every valve, every seal. Some estimates suggest hundreds of tons of lead flowed into the city, not as a metal, but as plumbing. Shaped, bent, buried. Still there, under modern streets, whispering stories from 2 millennia ago. And in the bodies? That's harder to count. Some skeletal remains show dangerously high lead levels, especially among the elite. Others show very little. Perhaps mineral crusts protected some. Perhaps not. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. Lead didn't poison the whole empire, but it poisoned enough. Enough cooks. Enough senators. Enough children sipping sapa from their breakfast bowls. And yet the pipes remained. Because they worked. Because they were easy. Because they were everywhere. You walk through the streets now differently. You look at every spout, every fountain, every basin with new eyes. That pipe under the butcher's counter? Lead. That rooftop runoff? Lead-lined. That tiny trickle next to the laundry wall? Probably a repurposed lead pipe from Augustus's time, still doing its job, still flavoring the water ever so slightly. You stop at a fountain and run your fingers through the stream. It's cool, clear, deceptively clean. You raise your hand, watch a droplet fall from your fingertips. This is what sustained Rome. What bathed it, fed it, flushed it. And maybe what bled it slowly. But the empire didn't notice. It just kept building. Pipes, palaces, pride. And now? Now you walk into a hall lined with numbers, columns, records, because it's time to count it all. To answer the question that no Roman ever really asked, how much lead is too much lead? You step into a cool, vaulted archive, a government records hall near the Forum, the kind of place where bored scribes yawn over census scrolls and tax receipts. Dust floats in the shafts of sunlight, and the scratching of styluses echoes like tiny whispers of bureaucracy. You're not here for politics or land deeds. You're here for pipes. And the numbers. A scroll is unfurled before you, handled by a clerk with fingers permanently ink-stained. It lists the fistulae, Rome's lead pipes, documenting weight per foot, length per property, water rights granted, and adjustments made over decades. You run your eyes across the measurements. 5-pound pipe, 60 feet, Marcus Livius Drusus. 7-pound pipe, 90 feet, for fountain usage. Each one tells a story, not of emperors, but of flow. This is the plumbing census. Rome was meticulous when it came to water. It had to be. 11 major aqueducts fed the city by the height of the empire. Over 1,000 kilometers of aqueducts, channels, and pipes carried water to over 1 million people. And here's the number that sticks in your throat. Over 350 tons of lead were used just in the known piping systems. Not counting cistern linings. Not counting cookware. Not counting wine vats. That's 350 tons, and that's just what we can prove. You flip to another scroll, property records. Water allotments. Every registered water user had to pay for their connection. Richer homes with more flow used heavier pipes. More pounds per foot. Literally more metal to show off. Quirky detail. Some aristocrats lobbied to rename their pipe sizes to sound fancier. My pipe is a decinaria. They'd boast, even if it wasn't. Because even in Rome, plumbing was marketing. You move on to another set of records, medical logs. Scattered and incomplete, but telling. One lists recurring illnesses among elites. Fatigue, stomach cramps, premature aging, mental fog, infertility. Many of these families also had their own fountains, their own bath suites, their own wine rooms lined with lead-cooled basins. Some entries are blunt. Symptoms persist in the villa despite change of slaves, cooks, and fruit. Historians still debate how directly lead was responsible. Was it just the pipes? Or the sapa? Or the makeup? The coins? The fumes in the forges? All of it. None. There's no single smoking amphora. But there are enough clues to paint a blurry, troubling portrait. Skeletal analyses of Roman remains, especially among elites, show some of the highest lead concentrations of any known ancient population. In some cases, 10 to 50 times modern safety thresholds. That's not anecdotal. That's physical evidence. And yet, the city thrived. Lead was everywhere. The people knew it had side effects. Vitruvius warned about it. Doctors mentioned symptoms. Common gossip even joked about the heavy taste of certain fountains. But no one stopped using it. Because it was cheap, soft, malleable, reliable. The backbone of aqueduct to faucet distribution. You couldn't build a city like Rome on clay and prayers alone. So the pipes went in. They stayed in. And centuries later, they're still there, beneath the cobblestones, under ruins, inside walls. Buried lead veins, heavy with memory. You leave the archive with numbers ringing in your ears. 350 tons, 10 aqueducts, 11 pipe sizes, 2,000 years. You walk now toward the edge of the city, past collapsed domes and crumbling facades, toward the places where fountains once sprayed like marble fireworks, where noble courtyards echoed with water's lull. Now, only silence, and grass, and the faint, hollow echo of forgotten flow. You crouch beside a shattered pipeline half buried in dirt. It splits at the joint, revealing the cross-section. The inner walls are crusted with mineral deposits, chalky, rough, like a protective shell. Some scholars argue this is what saved Rome from mass lead poisoning. That calcium from hard water lined the pipes, insulating citizens from the worst effects. Others point out, people drank more wine than water, and wine boiled in lead. No calcium crusts in that pot. You pick up a flake of the deposit. It crumbles in your hand. Was it protection? Or just delay? Fringe tidbit. The Latin word Saturnismus, which some later texts associate with strange behavior, has been retroactively linked by modern scholars to chronic lead poisoning. Saturn, the god of time and decay. Fitting. You gaze out across the ruins. People still debate whether lead played a role in the fall of Rome. Some historians say yes. The theory goes that widespread lead exposure eroded the judgment of the elite, clouded minds, weakened bodies, sapped vitality. That the empire rotted not from swords and sieges, but from its own plumbing. Others say no, that Rome's collapse was political, military, economic. That lead was just a background player in a far grander tragedy. Maybe they're both right. Maybe an empire as vast as Rome doesn't fall from a single blow, but from 1,000 slow leaks. One of them, made of lead. You stand, brushing the dust from your knees. The wind sighs through the aqueduct arch behind you. It sounds almost like water. But the pipes are dry now. And the lead? Still waiting. Waiting for the curious. For the archaeologists. For you. Waiting to whisper, in its soft, poisonous voice, I was here the whole time. And as you turn back toward the heart of the city, you feel it again beneath your feet. A silent echo. A hidden thread. The last trickle of an empire that ran on water and may have bled itself dry through the very pipes it once praised. You're nearly at the end now. Only one story remains. One last walk through the ruins, where the pipes no longer flow, but the ghosts still do. You return to the outskirts of the city, where weeds now grow through marble tiles and fountains sleep under blankets of dust. This was once a bustling district, baths, temples, markets, all alive with the flow of Roman engineering. But now, it's mostly ruin. And yet, as you step beneath a broken archway and into a half-collapsed villa, you hear it again. Drip, 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 faint, almost apologetic, but real. You follow the sound, past shattered columns and mosaics faded by centuries of sun and silence. The walls are cracked. Ivy coils through a broken window. The floors crunch underfoot. But the pipe? Still there. A section of lead, flattened in one place, greenish-gray with age, peeks from beneath the rubble. The trickle runs from a still-buried cistern, fed perhaps by the last breath of an underground spring. Just enough pressure to coax a memory of life through a pipe that hasn't seen daylight in hundreds of years. You sit beside it, touch the edge. Cold. Here it is. The final whisper of the Roman plumbing system. Not in the forums or the palace baths, but in a ruin, forgotten by the city, outlived by the metal meant to serve it. You close your eyes and imagine what it used to sound like. Steady, strong, smooth. Water coursing through these pipes every hour of every day, sustaining Rome's heartbeat. From mountaintop aqueducts to basement cisterns. From golden villas to communal latrines. Lead carried everything. Not just water, but ambition. And maybe hubris, too. Because this pipe, this simple, coiled thing, was never questioned. It was accepted, beloved, even. A material that could be shaped to your will. Bent, melted, sealed. And when it whispered danger, Rome didn't listen. You lean against a wall, staring at the quiet ruins. And for a moment, you swear you can see it, Rome as it was. Alive with voices. Slaves carrying water jars. Cooks boiling grape must. Children splashing near a courtyard spout. Senators debating aqueduct repairs. And always, beneath it all, the low, constant hush of water through lead. Quirky fact, in some modern digs, archaeologists find Roman pipes still marked with the names of their owners. Gaius, Lucilla, Tiberius. Little tombstones of infrastructure. Proof that someone wanted to be remembered, not with marble statues or epic poems, but with plumbing. Somewhere out there, a man once said, "Let my name run with the water." And so it did, until the water stopped. Historians still argue what ended Rome. Barbarians, bad emperors, inflation, division. But maybe, just maybe, the empire collapsed under its own cleverness. Under systems so perfect they became permanent. So permanent they were never questioned. Not even when they started to turn sweet wine into slow poison. Not even when lead lined every wall and pipe and pot. You walk now through the ghost of a bathhouse. The columns are mostly gone. The floor, once heated from below, is cool and cracked. A bird has built a nest in the remains of a lion's head spout. The silence is profound, but the pipes remain, some still buried, Some dug up and stacked in museum basements. Others melted and recast, centuries ago, into bullets or bells or roofing. But the mark of them lingers, in soil, in skeletons, in textbooks, in stories. Rome tried to conquer the world, and it almost did. But in the end, it was conquered by time, and by the quiet things beneath its feet. You reach the final room. A vaulted chamber with half its ceiling missing, open to the stars. In the center, a broken basin, a pipe still clinging to its edge like a scar. You sit down beside it, and let the silence wash over you. No crowds, no water, just you and the echo. The empire is gone, the marble cracked, the aqueduct stilled, but the lead remains, beneath your fingertips, in the bones of the land. Whispering, I carried Rome. I flowed through its veins. I watched it rise. I watched it fall. You lie back now, eyes closing slowly as the breeze brushes your cheek. A soft breath, a sleeping city, and the last voice you hear is the pipe, still dripping, still dreaming, still here. Understood. And now, as we leave the ruins behind and let the dust settle again over forgotten fountains and sleeping aqueducts, let your thoughts begin to quiet, like the last echoes of water slipping through ancient stone. The city has dimmed. The streets have emptied. The pipes have gone still. And though the Romans are long gone, their creations linger, beneath ruins, beneath museums, even beneath your dreams tonight. The world they built may have faded, but the whispers of its systems, the rush of water through lead, the rhythm of dripping taps, the hiss of steam beneath a mosaic floor, those whispers hum on, soft and low. You can let go now. You don't have to count anymore. Not the pipe weights, or aqueduct lengths, or the arguments of historians. They'll still be there tomorrow. But tonight, you're drifting back through warm marble halls, through quiet baths, through forgotten kitchens. Let yourself feel the slow comfort of water finding its path again, gently, gently, through earth and memory. Let your breathing slow with it. Let your muscles uncoil like an ancient pipe laid bare to the open sky. There's nothing left to fix. No leaks to patch. No scrolls to study. Just the hush of time and the weight of a story now complete. So close your eyes. Sink into the stillness. And sleep. Sweet dreams.